Coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles, it's stock up, stock down after the Eagles' disappointing Monday night loss at Lincoln Financial Field against the Washington Commanders. Who struggled, but also who shined in that matchup? That's coming up on today's edition of Locked On Eagles.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to a Tuesday edition of Locked On Eagles. You can find us on all podcast platforms Monday through Friday and on YouTube as well. And on Twitter, hit us up at Locked On Birds, at DiBiase LOE, and at GC24_football. Today's episode of Locked On Eagles is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. It's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. I'm Louie DiBiase. He's Gino Camilleri. Gino, of course, we're going to keep recapping this Monday night loss, the Eagles' first loss of 2022. Miami Dolphins, 70s undefeated team. They can celebrate. Eagles fall 32-21 in that game. And you know, Gino, the sky is certainly not falling, right? I mean, it took the most uncharacteristic offensive turnovers in the second half, crazy mistakes from referees, just an abysmal first half defensive performance to have the Eagles lose this game, right? They still had so many opportunities to win it. They're still the 1 seed in the NFC. They're still 7 games over 500 with a lot of very favorable matchups coming up, including this week against the Colts. But at the same time, you know, you see that loss. You see Minnesota's at 8-1 right on your tail. The Giants as well at 7-2. The Dallas Goedert injury today, Avonte Maddox banged up, and Jordan Davis. There is definitely some real adversity that this team gets to face now as we head down the stretch run of the regular season. And not to say I'm glad it's happening, but, you know, this is really going to, I think, help this team, you know, kind of make up that DNA to make a playoff push.
And this was part of their DNA going back to 2017 when they make a run for the Super Bowl. And they did it in a way where down the stretch, that's a moment in time I think a lot of us who followed the team for so long forget. Yeah. That from around after that Rams game until they beat Atlanta in the first round, things were not great in Philadelphia. They barely squeaked out that win over the Raiders on Christmas Day to get home field advantage after just struggling week in and week out after you lose your quarterback. And earlier in the season, you lose your left tackle and you lose Darren Sproles and you lose all of these pieces to your defense as well. But at the end of the day, what happened when you battled through adversity? You saw what happens at the highest of highs. You saw what happened at the lowest of lows, losing your quarterback after going on this 9-game win streak. And then you had to recollect yourself and go into the playoffs and win when it mattered the most.
Right.
The good thing about this game is that it was week 10. And the Eagles, they did themselves a favor. They put up 8 wins in a row. They got out to a strong lead in the NFC, but teams were able to keep pace with them. Does this set them back? Yeah, it definitely sets them back. But every team outside of one, the 1972 Miami Dolphins, have suffered a loss at some point on their record.
The undefeated record, Gino, I'm not bummed about it. It's more just, again,
not at all.
The frustrations of how they lost the game. You know, it felt like they had so many opportunities, of course, to win it, even with all their own issues that they shot themselves in the foot with. And the bigger concern really isn't about the loss, because I think we both expect them to bounce back in a big way this week against Indianapolis. And again, I still love the schedule they have down the stretch. Saturday. Right. I mean, that's the thing. He had his fun against the Raiders for sure. But, Gino, the bigger news is, you know, hopefully these injuries don't start to pile up. But there was a big one today. And they've gotten lucky that, you know, Jordan Davis put on IR, but it's not season ending, right? Avonte Maddox placed on IR this week, too. Before that game, Josiah Scott was back starting in the slot. Avonte Maddox, though, not expected to miss the entire season. But now you have Dallas Goedert, who suffered a shoulder injury during that ridiculous play where he fumbled the ball, but pretty much got his head taken off with a clear missed face mask call. Apparently, according to Mike Garafolo of NFL Network, Goddard is going to be placed on IR and is going to miss significant time. It's not season ending, but this is one of the positions that we really, this roster, we've been saying it all year. It's one of the deepest in football and most talented. But tight end was one of those spots. It's like, if you lose Dallas Goedert, can Grant Calcaterra, right? Can he pick up the slack in the receiving game? Is Jack Stoll improved enough? I don't think you're not going to replace Goddard while he's out. And that's definitely a big blow. I would say probably expect more in passing situations, 4-man receiver fronts, right, with Quez, Watkins, and Zach Pascal out there together. But regardless, you're not going to replace 88, and that's a brutal loss. So Jalen Hurts is going to have to elevate this team.
Yeah, this is Pandora's box that we didn't want to open. We didn't want to see. There's always somebody in the corner, like, just brushing the dust off of it, saying, like, hey, like, what's in this box here? Like, what happens if we do open it? We're just saying, no. Don't worry. We have a top 3 tight end in football. That box isn't going to need to be opened. Well, for the first time in nearly 10 years, you don't have that Zach Ertz to back up your Brent Selleck. You don't have that Dallas Goedert to back up your Zach Ertz. Who is that next man up? Well, the question is, how do you address this going forward? Well, right now you have a young Grant Calcaterra, who's seen a couple receptions of his young career. Jack Stoll, who is primarily a run-blocking tight end, but has had some moments in the receiving game. And then the big question mark, and I mean big, Tyree Jackson, the 6'7" converted quarterback to tight end.
He's been getting closer to playing, it sounds like.
They activated his 21-day practice window, I believe, 2 weeks ago, so he should be ready to roll sometime soon. But the question is that enough? So I today had tweeted out, what do you do here? Do you roll with what you have? Do you do what you said and roll with 4-man looks at wide receiver? Do you run more 2-back looks with Miles Sanders, Kenneth Gainwell?
It's another option for sure.
More involved. Or do you take a flyer, and I'd say one is probably has a better chance to happen than the other. Do you call up a guy like Jared Cook, who's sitting at home right now, who's 36 years old? Yeah. He's played at a good level. He's always a confident guy in that position, somebody who's done it for multiple different teams, multiple different schemes. Or the one who I don't think is possible, like, does Howie Roseman have Rob Gronkowski's number by chance? Because, hey, Rob, do you want to play?
Think of that, man.
Do you want to play for 8 games, brother? Like, come on down to Philly.
I don't know if he'll ever play for anybody but Brady again. But
I know, but
he'd fit right in with this.
Take a chance. Take
this fan
why
base,
not?
Man. No, for
That's
sure.
for
And
sure.
look, Gino, I'm not. This is obviously a huge loss. Dallas Goedert, I think, was playing even better than Travis Kelce as of late. And, you're not going to replace that production of the tight end position. But, Jalen Hurts is playing at an MVP level right now. He does have A.J. Brown still. He does have Devontae Smith. As you mentioned, this running game with Miles Sanders, you can use more of Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell. I think Quez Watkins now opens the door for him to get more targets. And I know he fumbled that ball yesterday, but I thought Quez looked really good in that game with 80 receiving yards on just 4 catches. So they're going to have to just step up. Everybody's going to have to play a bigger part while Goddard gets healthy. The good news is it's not season ending. So I think they can get through while he does recover from this injury. So, this is adversity they're facing again. And, every team's going to go through it. They weren't going to go 17-0 with no injuries at all. It wasn't going to go as perfect as it did the first 2 months. But even though they're facing adversity, Gino, the good news is it's not as severe as what you talked about in 2017, where you're losing your franchise left tackle, your MVP quarterback, your, top tier punt returner. It's not like 2018 and 2019. So I guess that's the glass half full approach. And we will continue to get into the glass half full approach coming up next. Stock up, stock down. We're going to get into the stock up first of that matchup between the Eagles and the Commanders on Monday Night Football. So we'll get into that coming up next right here on Locked On Eagles. But guys, first, to let you know, today's Locked On Eagles is presented by Prize Picks Daily Fantasy Sports. Prize Picks is so much fun to play. I've been doing traditional fantasy now for like 12 years, but I needed to spice it up. And when Prize Picks came around, I was all in. It's really fun. What you do is you pick 2 to 5 players, and if they're going to score more or less in their Prize Picks projection, You win up to 10 times your money on any entry. And the cool thing is, it's no competing against other people. It's just you versus the projection available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport you watch. Of course, the NFL, college football. Gino was watching Maction today before we started the podcast. You've got, when the MLB starts up again, the NBA, NHL, golf, Euro basketball, cricket, MMA, boxing, everything you can think of at PrizePicks Daily Fantasy. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy, safe and fast withdrawals as well. Currently operational in over 30 states in Canada. What you got to do is download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit matches up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks is going to give you $100. If you deposit $50, they'll give you $50. Don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit match up to $100. And guys, today's show is also presented by Simply Safe. If you've thought about securing your home with home security, but you've been putting it off, you'll want to listen up right now. Locked On Eagles listeners can order the #1 rated Simply Safe home security system for 50% off. This is their biggest offer of the year, and you don't want to miss it. What I love about Simply Safe is just all the different features with their advanced technology, whether it's controlling your system from your phone, watching the crystal clear HD live stream of your security camera, the wide variety of high-tech sensors. Everything just makes you fully feel just a lot more comfortable. Even in an emergency, 24/7 professional monitoring agents use Fast Protect technology exclusively from Simply Safe to capture critical evidence to verify the threat that is being alerted to you is real, so you can get priority police response. Simply Safe is home security with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and out, smarter ways to detect motion that alert you only when a threat is real, and even hazard sensors that detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. Don't miss your chance to save big on the only security system that we would recommend to you on Locked On Eagles. Get 50% off any new Simply Safe system at simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. This is their biggest discount of the year, so don't wait. Don't miss out. simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. There's no safe like Simply Safe. We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I'm Louie DiBiase. He's Gino Camilleri. It's a Tuesday edition of the show. Guys, make sure for your second listen, you check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts like Gino hopped on yesterday and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Gino, we're going to continue to recap the Eagles' first loss of 2022. They fall 32-21 on Monday Night Football at the Link against the Washington Commanders, who are now 5-5. It's crazy. Every NFC East team right now is above 500 and battling for either a bye week, the division title, or a playoff spot. The sky's not falling for the Eagles, Gino, and that's the good thing. They're facing adversity, as we talked about, injuries, a big loss here with some, critical mistakes. But at the same time, I thought there was a lot of good in this football game. And the key one is that you still did not lose because of your quarterback. I thought Jalen Hurts, in a situation he hasn't really faced this year, right? He's trailing in the second half, and he's got to get you back in that game. I thought he made all the plays he had to, and really was just kind of let down by his team, by the referees. And, I thought Hurts still played. It wasn't a unworldly, dominating performance, but I still thought he threw the ball really well.
It's one of those maturation games for me from Jalen Hurts where things might not have went right, but honestly, did he put you in a precarious position at all?
When everything else was unraveling, I knew at least our quarterback was just straight line the entire time. That's a great feeling, even in a loss.
He was going to keep a level head, and he did well throughout that game. I thought the only moment, which I honestly thought it was too late at that point, where it's that last drive and it's third down,
the pocket,
kind of drops his eyes and bails the pocket a little bit. But they should have never been in that situation to begin with. They should have executed the first 58 minutes in the game where they didn't have to get to that point.
Right.
And it started good with Jalen Hurts, and the only blip on the radar for him was that interception. And Lou, another one on his record. Can you even attribute it to him?
It was right in the Browns' hands, man.
It was a great throw you could have asked for. If he completes that, we say it's the best throw we've seen in how long. But instead, all it does in the worst game of A.J. Brown's short tenure in Philadelphia, it bounces off his hands. Devontae Smith had some drops at moments. they didn't have balance in the first half when it came to the pass
it's tough
versus
when you have
the run.
6 minutes of time of possession, to get
Right.
into a rhythm versus like 30 minutes for Washington.
And how much they leaned on him to continue to throw the football when we know that the run game will work, but he just doesn't waver, and he tries to win the game. And I thought he played probably a B overall yesterday.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a game that you would have won with him. And you had some moments where you could have won because of him. That throw to Quez Watkins, I mean, that's an unbelievably big
The ball placement
moment.
down the field again, man, just continues to be superb. I mean, that's on Quez.
If that's in college, he's down and we live to see another day,
I
and
know.
you get up and you play. And there was a clip that I saw of somebody that tweeted out after that of Tyler Lockett, who's a very experienced wide receiver, and he slides in those moments. And that's a veteran savvy type of move, because if you know that guy's right behind you, just take the yards and just.
It's hard though when you have 4.3 speed
Definitely.
like Quez Watkins does. But overall, Gino, though, again with Jalen Hurts, Washington scored 16 unanswered points. They didn't have the ball barely at all in the first 2.5 quarters. And for Hurts to still trailing 23-21, drive them down the field. And before that, I should say, it was 23-14. And Jalen drives them down the field, a huge 3rd and 11 conversion to Quez Watkins, where he goes through all his reads, pressure up the middle. He stands in there and delivers a pass, hits Devontae Smith for that passing touchdown. As you mentioned, he hits Quez Watkins deep down the field, trailing. It wasn't, again, an MVP performance, but considering the circumstance, I still felt like if this team can stop screwing up and the refs can stop screwing up, Jalen Hurts is going to give you a chance to win the game. And when you have a quarterback that always lets you feel that way, you're going to have a chance to win every football game. So I think that's definitely, in a way, a positive from that game. Stock up to Jalen Hurts. And the other one, too, that I think we would agree on, the defense, there's not a lot to love about that performance through the air or on the ground, and we'll get into it. But overall, Marcus Epps and CGJ, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, the safeties, continue to shine.
This team was hesitant to give money to Rodney McLeod and Anthony Harris, and they bring in Jaquiski Tart on a cheap deal, and we think that's going to be the plan, and Marcus Epps might be the odd man out once again. Well, Howie Roseman, if you want to pay 2 guys at this position, I think you have found those gentlemen, because Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Marcus Epps this season have saved your neck, and above anybody else, Jonathan Gannon's neck multiple times this year, because Chauncey alone, with the interceptions and his ability to just create turnovers and be in the right area, is worth every dollar in the world when it comes to paying a safety.
6 interceptions leads the NFL, man. And that interception yesterday, I mean, he came across, half the field to jump in front of that pass and make a leaping catch. I mean, CGJ has been impressive through the air, and then Marcus Epps, I mean, every single week is making 4 to 5 great plays against the run.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely is. And he came up on that big-time stop where I believe it's just like a quick slant pass. And I think McLaurin, or it might have been Curtis Samuel, was trying to get upfield.
I think it was Samuel,
Epps, Yeah, it was Samuel, and Epps stops him in his tracks and kind of brings back his momentum to keep him from going forward to lunge for the first down and allows them to get into 3rd down territory, which – we know how bad that was yesterday. But you're right, Lou. These 2 guys are just in the right place at the right time, and Chauncey just does everything. And the thing I love about him is that even when he's tasked with covering Terry McLaurin in man coverage,
which is just ridiculous that it had to happen.
It's a ridiculous assignment for sure.
I don't blame him at all in that situation.
But he doesn't back down from anything, man. The guy is fearless. And when I think of top safeties, top defensive backs in Eagles history, I think of those guys that just had that fearlessness, that it's you and me in coverage. It's either my ball or your ball, and I'm going to try and win as many one-on-ones as possible. I think Asante, I think Brian Dawkins, I think all those corners in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Man, this is just another one who has a chance to be added to that collection of Eagles' great defensive backs.
Yeah, Gino, there's still a lot of positives in that game that they can move forward here and try to bounce back this weekend against Indianapolis. But a lot of things they need to improve on. We'll get into that coming up in Stock Down right here on Locked On Eagles.
Before we do that, this episode of Locked On Eagles is brought to you by our friends over at, wait for it, pause for a second, Built Bar. We're back again. The best tasting protein bar in the biz. Built Bar is back here at the Locked On Eagles podcast, and they have some rejuvenated flavors: cookie dough topper, coconut brownie bar, and coconut brownie topper. And for the holiday season, Lou, I know you're getting festive. How's some white chocolate peppermint granola?
Love me some white chocolate.
Or some candy cane brownie? How's that sound for you?
Solid.
Sounds pretty good. First off, for anyone who hasn't tried Built Bar, what they are, it is basically a candy bar, but it is as nutritious as any protein bar out there. The reason why is they focus on their 100% real chocolate that they cover each and every bar with. You're getting 17 grams of protein, low in sugar, low in calories, 130 calories for arguably something that's as good as your name brand candy bars. And I'm not kidding. Every time they release a new flavor, it's my most exciting time when I come home and I open my mailbox and there is a box of Built Bars. If you want to get in on Built Bar today, go to built.com. Use the promo code LOCKEDON15. That's LOCKEDON, the number 15 at built.com to get 15% off of your order right now. Try out their holiday flavors. Try out their original flavors. It's been 4 years since we've been doing this show. Built Bar hasn't gone anywhere, and they aren't going away anytime soon. They are the best. Built Bar, you got to try this.
We thank you so much for making today's episode of Locked On Eagles your first listen, and thanks for making LOE your first listen each and every day. We're getting into stock up, stock down after that loss against the Washington Commanders on Monday Night Football. The Eagles finally lose a game this year, 8-1. Gino, still a lot of positives as we talked about. Still thought Jalen Hurts gave you a chance to win in tough circumstances. The safeties looked really good through the air and on the ground again. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson with his 6th league-high interception on the day. Marcus Epps, too, some really good plays through the air and on the ground. But at the same time, just a lot to fix on this defense. And, you know, it was really a team effort, you know, because even before we start with Jonathan Gannon, of course, we're about to talk about, the man coverage wasn't great when they dialed that up. The 4-man pass rush wasn't good. We'll talk about the run defense. But overall, man, I still, again, we have the same issues with Jonathan Gannon, I feel like, over and over again, where he's not using the personnel in the right way, weak defensive, you know, coverage on third and short, you know, just the way he was using his defensive tackles against the run. It just, yet again, it's just very frustrating when he almost just like reverts back to the 2021 defense when it doesn't fit at times. And that was, you know, frustrating for sure. Taylor Heineke looked like at times the MVP candidate, and that should not happen.
On yesterday's show, I went into almost a soliloquy-esque type of way that I was talking.
I was hoping
about
you would.
Game. Yeah. And I was bringing up the idea of, was there always this crack in the foundation? And I have another way to equate it. So about 3-4 months ago, it's raining super hard here in Colorado. It started coming down like crazy, but it wasn't like hail, but it was rain. And where I record in my basement, right next to all my stuff, is a window. And there's maybe about 1.5 inches where water started coming through. And I started to say, well, that's been there for 2 years since we've owned the house. I just didn't know about it until something went wrong. Has that crack been in the foundation with Jonathan Gannon, and we just were okay with it until something went wrong? The crack in the foundation being he has not put on display the ability to bring week in and week out an adapted game plan to play to the strengths and take away said strength, play to the strengths of your defense and take away the strengths of an opponent's offense, and most notably against mid-level to average quarterbacks. And that has been clear the last 2 years, Lou, that he cannot do it. It was ever so clear yesterday. It took him so long to even throw a blitz in there. And then you hit home on some pressure, and it's too late in the game. And when is this guy?
It still felt like they were trying to stop Tom Brady in a deep passing attack instead
it's
of
like
going
Patrick
after
Mahomes was supposed to be sitting back there.
instead of going after a running first offense. 26 carries from Brian Robinson and 14 for Antonio Gibson, right? So 40 carries between their top
run
two
plays
running
than
backs.
the Eagles ran plays.
And they're playing with light boxes when Jordan Davis is not in there. Fletcher Cox looks like a shell of who he used to be. And for the second week in a row, they got gashed on the ground and through the air. It's just, yeah, man, it's very frustrating when you see all the talent on this defense, even without Jordan Davis. Without Jordan Davis, it should not suddenly turn your run defense into the worst in the league. I mean, what two rookies have done the last 2 weeks, Dameon Pierce and Brian Robinson, it's been embarrassing.
The game plan that Washington put together, hats off to their offensive coordinator, their head coach, Ron Rivera, what they were able to do to Jonathan Gannon to, like the screen says, take away the weakness of what the Eagles well, not take away the weakness of the Eagles, but expose that crack in the foundation of their run defense, because your defensive coordinator is so stubborn to go away from what he believes in, even though he doesn't have the personnel to run what he wants to do. But at the same time, he has the best personnel that any defensive coordinator in Eagles history arguably has had, outside of Buddy Ryan back in the 90s with all of those guys, Reggie White and company, and the early 2000s. He has no excuses to not make adjustments. And those games where on Monday when you're looking at whatever sports channel and you're seeing the ticker and you say, this quarterback, Marcus Mariota, threw it 54 times. You're like, what? Why did that happen? Oh, because they made Marcus Mariota throw the ball, because they stacked the box, they sent home pressure, they made him get the ball out quick.
And trust Darius Slay and James Bradbury, man. I mean, you have the best. Your top two corners have been the best in football this year, and we already talked about how good the safeties have been. Why you didn't trust those four? And Josiah Scott was holding his own. Curtis Samuel didn't do really anything last night in the slot. So, yeah, it's very frustrating. It's not just on Gannon for sure. Fletcher Cox has been horrible the last month against the pass and against the run. And it's not going to get easier. I mean, you played Jonathan Taylor this weekend, and it's definitely concerning. This is something they really, really miss Jordan Davis. I was losing my mind hearing the guy over the loudspeaker at the stadium say it's 3rd and 1 every single drive. I mean, the amount of short yard. Yeah, it was. Everybody's trying to get pumped, and I'm like, it's 3rd and 1 again. Yeah. And with Brian Robinson, that's a physical, really good running back from Alabama that's going to get 1 yard most of the time. So it's definitely the Achilles
and it's not going to get easier,
defense.
dude. You're playing A.J. Dillon. You're playing Aaron Jones.
Right. Derrick Henry's coming up.
Jonathan Taylor. You're going to have to play the Dallas backs again. Oh, and Saquon Barkley. That guy's a pretty freaking physical
it's a scary
runner.
It's a scary.
You don't have any more
matchup.
excuses, Lou. After what Dameon Pierce did to you last week, it should have been a slap in the face. What you are doing doesn't work. If you have to run more cover 3 and just play man on the outside with one high safety, because you cannot get that pressure with the front 4 and you have to load the box, let them beat you with their arm, Lou. Let a team outthrow you. No team has outthrown
because these teams,
to date, Lou.
These teams have great running backs and they don't really have great quarterbacks. The Titans, the Packers, even with the way they've been playing, Rodgers is great, obviously, but not this year. And, the Colts, these offenses, when they produce, it's on the ground. So if you're still heading in there playing soft zone coverage and light boxes, that's the formula against Patrick Mahomes, not the Tennessee Titans, not the Washington Commanders yesterday. And Heineke still tore you up. So it's a very, very frustrating performance from the defense overall. And, Gino, it wasn't just the defense. They made some big plays to give the offense the ball back multiple times in the second half. It was just, stocked down to uncharacteristic mistakes. Again, the 2 fumbles from Dallas Goedert and from Quez Watkins, the interception in the first half. But it wasn't just that. I mean, how about special teams? Aaron Sipos, them kicking it inbounds, first off the penalty on special teams, so they had to repunt. So the 2-minute warning was already at risk of being lost. And then they instruct their punter to kick it down, or maybe he's just that bad and he kicks it right down the middle. So you lose the 2-minute warning. And, the penalty at the end of the game, the late hit to Taylor Heineke, that was maybe one of the most frustrating fourth quarters I've ever watched.
And getting a late hit on a play.
Yeah, and the refs were horrible, by the way. I wrote it down. Stock down referees, too. Jeez.
I get the late hit on the Brandon Graham. You have to protect the quarterback. The face mask is unacceptable.
Egregious.
That wasn't called.
Yeah.
I think the worst one of them all, Lou, was the late hit on Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, where the player was still in bounds, and he took another step after he was contacted by Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. It was inexplicable. Sometimes you just have to sit back and do the Joker crazy laugh and just say, why are we watching this league? But we love it. This is the first time that the Eagles have suffered defeat. We have to give credit where credit is due to that Washington team. Lou, if you wanted to put together a game plan on how to beat the Philadelphia Eagles, you take away time of possession. They held the ball for 40 minutes to the Eagles 20. They out-turnovered them in terms of the Eagles had 4, Washington had 2.
Yep.
They ran 87 plays. The Eagles ran barely above 40. That's a recipe to beat a team like Philadelphia.
For sure.
Who, when they had the football, are explosive. And when they play good defense, they are okay. And when they put the ball in their quarterback's hands, that's the only guy I trust right now.
Well, we'll move on from this game. Let's toss that film out. Get ready for the Indianapolis Colts this coming weekend. We have, of course, our first look at the game tomorrow on the show. We've got crossover Thursday with the boys over at Locked On Colts on Thursday, another show on Friday as well. So, guys, make sure you subscribe to Locked On Eagles on all podcast platforms Monday through Friday on YouTube as well. And on Twitter, make sure you hit us up at Locked On Birds, at DiBiase LOE, and at GC24_football. Thank you for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Guys, make sure your second listen is the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day in sports, plus get instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on Odyssey, YouTube, and wherever you get your shows. For Gino Camilleri, I'm Lou DiBiase signing off. As always, thank you for downloading, thank you for watching and listening, and let's go Birds.